Guess whose birthday it is? Mine.
Geeks of the Week!
Apologies to the other geeks because I have no time to respond this week because Harry Potter things need to be talked about. Although Lulu, congrats on your first con guestage, that's friggin' awesome. So on this channel we've talked several times about how important Harry Potter is to us, so instead of gushing about how awesome it is again, I kind of want to talk about the books versus the movies, particularly like my personal top 7 things that I wish had been included in the movies. These were mostly things that were left out entirely, but there are a couple that were just changed for movie purposes. So I had a hard enough time narrowing it down to 7 things, but for the first one I'm kind of still flip-flopping between 2 Draco Malfoy related moments. I was always kind of sad that in the movies Harry met Draco in the school in front of everyone else, because in the books he met him in Madame Malkin's robe shop during his Diagon Alley trip with Hagrid, and Draco was the first wizard his own age that he really interacted with. For some reason I just kind of found it more interesting in the version where he meets his rival before he meets his friends, because I feel like he could have easily fallen in with Draco if he hadn't already been a good person. The other is kind of a huge moment during the 5th book where Draco's talking shit during a Quidditch match and Harry, along with Fred and George, get into an all-out brawl with him, which leads to Umbridge banning them from Quidditch and locking up their brooms for the rest of the year. This put way more significance on the twins' exit from Hogwarts because they basically had to break their brooms out of her lockdown in order to break out and then torment her before they made their exit. Plus, it kind of established a stronger connection between them and Harry that I feel was kind of lacking in the movies. My second moment, I understand why they cut out of the movie because it didn't really further the plot, but as Luna Lovegood is my favorite character of the series, I was kind of sad that they didn't show her room when the trio visited the Lovegood house in Deathly Hallows. I always thought Luna was a fun character just because of how out there she was, but when the trio sees her room and sees hand-painted portraits of them along with Neville and Jenny connected by the word friends, that's when I fell in love with her. It was just really endearing to see how much their friendship meant to her, as she was always Loony Lovegood, the weird outcast, and they didn't even realize the significance that they had in her life. Now, I do think that people who only saw the movies still fell in love with Luna just because Ivana Lynch was so utterly perfect in the role. But yeah, I wish we had seen her room. My next thing is Dobby. Obviously he existed in the movies, but he basically disappeared between Chamber of Secrets and Deathly Hallows 1. The movies basically replaced him with Neville. Dobby is the one that gets the Gillyweed for Harry Potter in the Triwizard Tournament. He's the one that shows them all the Room of Requirements in Order of the Phoenix, and just a bunch of other things that are actually related to my other moment, so I'll get to that in a second. I was kind of okay with the movies replacing Dobby with Neville just because Neville is so important to the ending of the story, although in the books he was included in other more prominent ways which I didn't include on this list and I should have. The prophecy could have applied to either Harry or Neville, but in choosing to go after Harry's family, Voldemort basically made Harry the Chosen One instead of Neville. None of that is covered in the movie and I think that's weird. But anyway, back to the Dobby thing. Not having him in any movies between Chamber of Secrets and Deathly Hallows kind of made his reappearance feel kind of odd. And I'm kind of wondering if his death had as much of an impact on those who only saw the movies. My next thing is basically all other house elf related things. There's no Winky in the movies, and Hermione's precious spew movement was left out entirely as well. For those not aware, in Goblet of Fire, Hermione starts a movement called the Society for the Protection of Elvish Welfare. Basically a movement to free the house elves, or at least not treat them like slaves. Like, pay them, give them clothes, let them be free, and if they still want to serve people, cool. This rope, I'm super hot. Okay, this has to come off. So spew was a massive part of the books, and it kind of led to the building of Ron and Hermione's relationship more so, because it caused a definite rift between them, because Ron, being brought up in the wizarding world, didn't see why she thought having house elves was wrong. So it was a really rocky part of their friendship while simultaneously showing the readers that people can have different opinions and ideals about the world based on their upbringing, and it's not always necessarily good people's opinions versus evil people's opinions. And it's the whole culmination of this back and forth between them through the years that is actually what ends up leading them to their first kiss. In the movie, it's because they just survived the terror of a Horcrux, while in the book, it's because during the battle, Ron at some point says something along the lines of, "We need to tell the house elves to get out because they shouldn't be ordered to fight and die for us." And it's at that moment she basically like drops everything and just tackles him. And I thought that was a much more emotional connection than, oh shit, we just survived some horrifying water thing. Plus we get Harry's quip of, is this really the time? Next on my list is Peeves the Poltergeist. I am so sad Peeves was never included in the movies even the slightest bit, especially in the 5th one, because he is such a huge part of driving Umbridge insane. Obviously he wasn't pivotal to the plot, he was just a really fun part of the books that I kind of missed out on in the movies. Next is something so simple, I don't know why it wasn't in the movie. The origins of the Marauders map. The fact that it was created by Harry's dad and his band of friends made the map so much more significant to Harry, and it's such a simple thing to include. I don't know why it wasn't brought up in one of the multiple conversations he had with Lupin regarding it. Plus, it's a very complicated bit of magic technology, and it kind of fascinated me thinking about how 4 students created it, and how those same 4 students were able to become animagus, which was hard to accomplish by adult witches and wizards. Like, those are the main reasons I wish JK Rowling would write a Marauders story. I feel like those 4 had some very interesting adventures. Alright, my final one is probably one that has bothered every Harry Potter fan since the first movie's release. Harry's eyes. They were such a prominent part of the story, and so many people go through telling Harry, you have your mother's eyes. It's actually the fact that Dumbledore used to convince Snape to keep him safe. Now, I understand that Daniel Radcliffe was allergic to the colored contacts, and it probably would have cost thousands of dollars digitally correcting them in every frame of the movie, so I was eventually okay with his eyes being blue instead of green. But when you spend a whole series saying you have your mother's eyes, and then you finally show us the young version of the mother, and her eyes are brown, it's kind of made worse by the fact that the older Lily actually did have blue eyes, so at some point in her life she got like hit over the head really hard and they just went, ah, blue! I realize casting isn't easy, but when eyes are such a huge focus of the story, I feel like a multi-million-dollar film can do a bit better. Now obviously there are a ton of other things I wish had been included. Mars is awfully bright tonight, but those are my big ones. I'd love to hear yours if you have any that I didn't include. Let me know in the comments, because any and all Harry Potter related conversation is welcome and makes life better. And with that, I hope everyone has an awesome weekend, stay geeky, and we will see you next week. And cheers to JK Rowling.